All right, we are recording. So, we are going to talk about Morningstar today, and I think the best way to start the conversation is to go ahead and say something nice. If it weren't for Morningstar, I wouldn't be with you.
Yeah. You're Canadian, I'm American, like Southern.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we would have never met.
Brought us together from across the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think Bible school in general is a great place to find a wife. And so, very, very thankful.
He who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Shh. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways,
Well, start like by like our year or two, like what year we were in Morningstar.
When we started?
Yeah, like what years were there, and yeah, like give her timeline, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't want to give too many details. I mean, what I'll say is that I became a second year when you were a first year, something like that. Yeah. Any other details?
No, unless you want to give the years. That's all I was thinking.
Oh, yeah. And, well, I started in 2007. I did my first year in 2007. I did my second year in 2009. That's when Sarah did her first year.
Yeah.
I graduated from the third year in 2010.
2011.
No. Bump it all up a year. This is terrible content. Bump it up a year. 2008 is when I first came.
It's real.
Then I came in 2010 to do the second year, and then we graduated and got married in 2011. So glad y'all know that. But anyways.
I think your numbers still are off. But it's okay. So I was in MSU from 2009 to 2011. And so in my first year, over Christmas break, our head, like the director of the school, he got fired because he had the Leviathan spirit, and that's just a no-no, right? So don't get that and go to Bible school, guys, because they'll kick you out. So he had the Leviathan spirit, so they got rid of him, and so they brought on Stephen Alls as the acting director of the school. And from my knowledge, he was like the temporary, right? He was like the temp director while they were like looking for another one. So towards the end of that school year, he invited me, my really good friend Leah, and a few other students to a ministry trip to Denmark. So we were all super excited about that. And so as we started getting closer and closer to it, something did not feel right to me. I don't know why, I just didn't feel right about it, which was weird because it's Europe, right? Like, I'm like, obviously I want to go to Europe. But I brought it up to Stephen Alls, and he basically told me, like, no, you've got to go. You know, I didn't have the money for it either, so that's probably why I didn't feel right about it. But, and so he's like, you know, God will figure this out. If it's meant to be, God will figure it out. And so he came up to me and Leah, you know, not too long after that, in the cafe, and said, like, hey, your trips, like, an anonymous donor paid for your trips got paid for, so you don't have to pay for your trip. And so we were like, oh, this is exciting, you know, must be meant to be, right? Like, Stephen Alls got like a donor to pay for our trip. That's amazing. And so fast forward, as we're like getting closer and closer to the trip, we're doing more and more meetings at the parks, meetings everywhere, coffee shops, whatever. I think we even like did meetings going into Charlotte and stuff like that. But so we were doing all these meetings, like it felt like almost every day. It was annoying. As we got closer to that trip, there was one meeting in particular where we are at like Starbucks, like if you guys know the Starbucks in Valentine. That one, at one of those like big wooden tables there, and it was like the whole group, right? It was at a meeting, and so I was sitting across from Stephen Alls, and Leah was sitting next to Stephen Alls, and you know, everybody else was kind of spread around that table. And I got up because I don't know, I needed to grab a coffee or something, but anyways, my view changed, so I was able to see under the table. And I looked under the table, and I could see Stephen Alls rubbing against Leah's leg. And so was really awkward. Tried to kind of not think about it. And then he kind of made a comment to me, like a "that's what she said" kind of comment. Like I said something and he was like, "You'd like that, wouldn't you?" And I was like, "Huh, okay." Like, didn't know what to do. Like, 19-year-old girl, and like this guy is supposed to be like Jesus, right? Like that's what they told us. He was like God. He's our example of like, he's a prophet, right? Like come on, he's like, if God picked him in this position, he must be like pretty darn close to perfection, right? So really, like, I didn't know what to do with that. Like, it kind of freaked me out. So I tried not to think about it. And so then fast forward to right before we go on this trip, the whole group that was supposed to go on this trip got called into a room back behind the sanctuary. And Rick Joyner, Stephen Alls, and this new guy named Brad McClendon, who apparently was like, he's now like, this is when they replaced Stephen Alls, was in this meeting, right? Because they brought Brad McClendon in because they were getting rid of Stephen Alls. So Rick Joyner said that Stephen Alls was going to go into restoration because he was having an extramarital affair, like, with this student, right? And so they were going to go, like, he was going to take a back seat and he was going to go into restoration and not do ministry for a little while. And so then Rick Joyner told us the story of Noah when he was like drunk and naked, and his children found him and they covered him, and instead of exposing his sin, they covered his sin. And instead of exposing Stephen All's sin, we were to cover Stephen All's sin, because we're going to cover it in love, because that's what Noah's kids did. Even though, like, there was legitimately no one else. I never thought about this, but, like, there was nobody else on the earth at the time. Did you? I don't know. I just never thought about it. Like, who are they going to expose it to? Like, God, the flood just killed everybody. So
there were two of every kind of animal.
Yeah.
And once you get those animals talking, they never shut up. They're very gossipy.
You can't expose those sins to all the animals. But I really took that to heart and I never told anyone. And so, yeah. And then another thing that happened with Stephen Alls is we used to go up to Charlotte to do ministry trips with Stephen Alls and stuff like that. And there was one time where we were in the car and he was like giving me advice, and he just put his hand on my thigh, and it just a little too close for comfort, and yeah. So that's my story.
And that's not okay. We got a little monkey.
I'll be back.
Give us a second. I guess I'll hold the fort. That's not okay. Obviously, even the lightest touch on, her knee obviously isn't okay. My wife would want to know that if someone touched her, that I would do something about it, that I wouldn't let it continue. And if I did, that'd be very demoralizing for her. Be very, basically the person who's supposed to defend her is not. And so, that would be a failure of leadership on my part. I think that the church should have some type of similar level of accountability and responsibility in terms of feeling like we need to protect
young people,
everyone. And if and when instead a culture of secrecy emerges, and instead we don't want to say anything bad because we're worried about the consequences. Well, what if this caused someone to turn away from God? Well, what if this causes someone to lose their job? I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, but at the same time, bad things have been happening at Morningstar, and so once it continues after already happening over and over again, then you reach a point where it's either being hidden on purpose or what. Just the most unbelievable gross negligence. So it's being hidden on purpose. So yeah, that's not okay. And so that's why we're talking about this. Is there anything else that you want to say?
I don't think so. No, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Leah has spoken out. She's told her story.
Yeah.
I can confirm that the person that she was dating was part of her story is that person was working at the church and going home and then going back to the church and taking breaks. If you listen to her story, she'll tell you more of what he was doing when he was at home, but it's happening multiple times a day, and I can confirm that because he told me the same thing. I can also confirm that 13 and 15-year-old girls were that the comments that he made to Leo, he also made to me. So I want to validate Leah's story because she doesn't deserve to be called a liar after what's already happened.
Yeah.
And I also think that if there is any chance that there's any way to protect this from ever happening to anyone ever again, especially people who are underage,
yeah,
there's no question of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So we're praying for the people that have been hurt. Some people have been raped.
Yeah. Some people will never, ever share their stories publicly. They just won't. And they don't have to.
No, they don't have to.
There are bad stories.
So we're praying for them. And a lot of people have walked away from God and don't believe in God anymore. And hey, man, how could you blame them? Turns out the safe sanctuary was actually, not so good. Then we're also praying for the people who are going to have to deal with the consequences of this, like Rick Joyner, like Stephen Alls, and like everybody else. And we hope that, we've been talking about this whole thing, and really what it comes down to us is that the truth, I think, is either the truth or it's not the truth at all. And you can stand on the truth. You can trust the truth. The truth will set you free if you stand on the truth, if you speak the truth, if you don't try to hide or cover up the truth. And so we're praying for those people too, because maybe some things are going to come tumbling down. Yeah. And that's okay, because God has a good plan for them too.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that was plenty.
I know a lot of people are finding a lot of catharsis, finally getting your chance to have your voice heard, trying to figure out what the hell happened while you're at Morningstar.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out too.
Yeah.
Maybe we're one of the lucky ones because we found each other. I don't know. But we wish you all well. And that's it.
I think, and if you want to share your story, you just want to talk to somebody, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Leah. You can reach out to Chris.
Yes. If you have any questions about anything that Sarah has said or that I have said, go ahead and reach out to me on Facebook and don't talk to her about it, please.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
So something I forgot to mention that I do think is an important thing. It's a minor detail, but I think it's important for you to understand the culture at this school and what was happening. So in that meeting where they were telling us about Stephen Alls, what Stephen Alls did, the one with Rick Joyner, Brad McClendon, and the whole group of students that were going to Denmark, it was everyone except for Leah. And we all knew that this was about Leah. And so I just think that's an important little thing to know, because from my understanding, she knew the meeting was going on. She knew what it was about. She knew that the person that had done this to her was allowed into that meeting, and she was not. And all of her friends from her school in that group were talking about her and this, temporary director of the school, and she wasn't allowed to be in that meeting. So I just think that's important to know, because I think that's just a really messed up thing that they did, and I think that should be out there.